And that means that this is going live and we are recording. And this room is filling up with fans, which is the best part. So hi everyone, if you are here to celebrate Nicole Lesperance's second debut, not in just a year, but like in as many weeks. We just saw you last month. I just can't even believe it. So this is your second launch of the year. Then you are in the right place. I'm just going to let this room populate. I also want to introduce Anna Drury, author herself, and we're going to talk about that in a second. And we're just going to do a little bit of chatting while our room fills up. And Anna did something kind of super cool before we got started. So I'm going to let you do your thing for a second because it's magic.
It is magic. Do you want to do it now?
Let's do it. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to talk about books?
Do you want to do this now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So while we're filling up the room, when I was asked to do this, then did what any good millennial does, and I went and stalked Nicole on social media. And discovered that we have one of the same tarot decks, which is this really pretty deck. Usi? Is that how you say it? Do you know, Nicole? I don't know. It's you.
I have no idea how you pronounce the company. It's like Usi or something, yeah.
But it's called the Pagan Otherworld's tarot deck. Here's the book that goes with it. Wow. And so before this, I decided to pull a card for us, for Nicole, really, for your debut, your YA debut, and like any sort of message. And I pulled the 9 of Wands.
Wow, good one.
And the main words, so I'm not going to go through the whole explanation, but the main words are breakthrough, objectivity, and positive change. And I just thought that that was really cool because while I have not had my own debut book out there, I know a lot of writers and have writer friends. And I know that there is just that feeling of, oh my gosh, now it's out. Like it's been so close to you for so long and it's been yours and your baby. And then it really becomes all the readers, right?
Yeah.
And it belongs to them. So I thought that positive change, and then like that can be so vulnerable feeling and all of those things, but that it's so good.
Yeah.
So good. So it felt really good to me. So I thought I'd start us there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's such a great card too.
I think that's awesome. I hope that you talk about tarot because so with friends, we talked before, like there's always just a little bit of, conversation before we do cool things like this. I also have a tarot deck and it scares me because I believe in magic in a real way. And I believe the tarot cards are real magic. So I want to learn more about how to do this and not curse myself because I don't want to do that. So
that won't happen.
I need pointers. So I'm hoping that's a thing that happens tonight. So there are 27 friends here to celebrate you. We're just so excited. Let me just give my little thing. So my name is Kira Wilson-Cook. I am the events coordinator of the Silver Unicorn Bookstore, beaming into you from Acton, Massachusetts. I'm here with Nicole Lesperance, who is debuting her first, this is your first YA novel, The Wide Starlight, which you can see if you're below me. Yeah, so we're gonna just hold it up. Yes, it's so beautiful. It's just like so gorgeous. Congratulations on your book birthday. And we are also here with author Anna Drury, who is a contributor to the upcoming anthology Absolutely Normal, which is edited by Nora Carpenter and Rocky Collin. And it will be debuting not this year, but next year, right? Or 2023, is that what we learned? Okay, that's fine because we're gonna be on the lookout for you. It's a big deal. We'll be celebrating you very soon, and that's phenomenal. I wanna let y'all know a couple of things. The first thing is that The Wide Starlight is available to you at the Silver Unicorn Bookstore for those of y'all who live in town. And if you don't live in town, you can find it on silverunicornbooks.com. If you'd like signed copies, make sure that you write a little something in the comment box so that way we can make that happen for you. And there's a special giveaway at the end of this here program. So I'll be back after my little box goes away and cool things happen. I'll be back to find out who has won some prizes. And this is the part where I realize I've been rambling. Did I miss anything? I don't think so, right? Right. All right. Happy Fat Tuesday for everybody who's celebrating. I hope you're all full on gumbo like I am. So that way you can kind of cozy up to this fun conversation. I can't wait. Thank you again, Nicole, for choosing us to be part of both of your launches, both of your debuts. It's such a big year for you, and we're just honored to be part of it. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much for hosting me. You guys have been absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Have fun. I'll be back in a little bit.
All right. Awesome. So I am so excited to be here with you, Nicole. This is so fun. And it was like they match made us as friends.
Absolutely.
So, so Silver Unicorn is magic in all the ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that that's awesome. So I already got us going with the tarot. So I was wondering if you wanted to just get into reading a little bit for us, and then we can have a conversation.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll do just a quick recap of what the book's about. The Wide Starlight, as you already know, is it's my YA debut, and it's the story of a girl named Ellie who was born on the Arctic island chain of Svalbard. When Ellie was 6 years old, her mom took her out onto a frozen fjord, whistled at the northern lights, and got swept away into the sky. 10 years later, Ellie's living with her dad on Cape Cod when she finds out that the northern lights are going to be visible. So she whistles at them, and her mom comes back, but nothing about her mom is quite right anymore. So Ellie has to piece together her memories, which are told as Norwegian fairy tales, and she has to journey back to Svalbard to figure out what really happened. So that's kind of the book in a nutshell. And I guess I'm going to read the first chapter, which is pretty short. Okay. You're not allowed to be born or to die on Svalbard. On this tiny archipelago halfway between Norway and the North Pole, there's no cemetery because the bodies freeze solid and never go away. And the hospital isn't equipped for all the messy and terrible things that can happen in childbirth, so women fly down to the mainland before their babies are due. No beginnings or endings of life, just the in-between. Once upon a time, in a greenhouse at the top of the world, my mother and father were waiting for me to be born. It was almost time, and my mother had brought her plane ticket and packed her suitcase. Books, pajamas, toothbrush, diapers, more books. Everything was ready, and she was supposed to be sleeping, but an ache in her lower back kept nudging her awake. She left my father snoring in bed and stole outside. Even at midnight, the sun was bright, the air scented with cold sea and wind over stone. On an improvised clothesline behind the house, my mother had hung 3 pairs of tiny-footed pajamas that she'd bought for me. She wanted them to absorb that night sun smell, so I'd know it as soon as I came into the world. As she reached up to unpin the first sleeve, the whispering of wings filled the air. Claws grasped the shoulders of her robe, her hair, her wrists and fingers. White feathers flew like snow as the birds flapped and pulled and rose. Up my mother flew over the little town of Longyearbyen, its rows of candy-colored houses cradled by flat-topped mountains. Down through a fjord with water like blue-stained glass, over a craggy glacier with waterfalls pouring into the sea, then up again to the top of a snow-covered peak. I used to ask my mother if she was scared when she flew all that way, but she told me the birds were so gentle with their claws, and besides, she'd never been afraid of heights. As she flew, she said, the pain in her back grew deeper, fiercer, until it felt like she might turn inside out. Finally, the birds set her down in a nest made of down feathers, softer than clouds. Moments later, she pushed me out into the world, wet and steaming in the cold. She pulled off her bathrobe and wrapped me in it, put me to her breast. I asked her once if she was cold without her bathrobe, but she said she felt nothing but wild elation singing through her veins now that she could finally hold me in her arms and see my face. She said she could have walked home naked and not shivered once, but she didn't have to walk home. Once I dropped off to sleep and my mother tucked her robe closer around my shriveled face, the birds took her again, this time by the shoulders of her nightgown. She wasn't worried about dropping me. She was physically incapable of letting me go, she said. The birds flew my mother across the fjord and back into town, which was now slowly waking up, though it had been light all night long. She pointed to our house, the green one at the end of the row, in case the birds had forgotten. As they put her down, her feet slid right into her slippers where she'd left them. The door had latched shut, and she hadn't brought her keys, so she knocked. When my father answered, bleary and tousled, there she was, holding the child he hadn't been expecting to see for weeks. Sometimes, as I'm just about to fall asleep, I can almost remember it, the confusion in his face fading to love as he drank me in. It didn't matter how or why. We were back, we were home, we were safe. But it wasn't the only time my mother flew away.
Yay, thank you so much. That opening is so beautiful and just full of like, oh my gosh, like when I read it, I was like, where are we going? Like just so many questions. And I think maybe to get us going, well, before I really get us going, I want to say to everyone who's here, the Q&A is open and we will definitely have some time dedicated for it towards the end, but feel free to pop questions in along the way. This is very much a conversation that Nicole and I are having to celebrate her YA debut. And so you can put something in there at any time and I will check periodically. So you may help steer our conversation even if you would like. But to get us going, I feel like authors are often asked, like, where did this idea come from? And I know if someone ever asks me a question like that when I'm writing something, I'm like, where do ideas come from? I don't always know. If you have, if you know where the seeds of this were sort of born within you and where it came from, I'd love to hear about that. But if not, even I'm curious about what sort of came to you first for the story. Was it maybe this idea, this concept, or was it a character's voice? Was it the setting, which is like a character in and of itself in this book? It's so vivid, or the Northern Lights. So what sort of got you going, I guess, is the way I want to ask that question.
It's a good question. I don't even remember where I had read this legend about the Northern Lights. I think it was this kind of throwaway, don't whistle at the Northern Lights or they'll swoop you away. They'll swoop down and carry you off forever. I don't know, I just kind of like latched onto it. Even though I like hadn't really been to the Arctic or seen the Northern Lights, I didn't really have any connection to them, but like I just kept it kept like turning around in my head. And I started just like researching where it came from. Strangely enough, I couldn't find the exact legend. Like I wanted like specifics, like where's this from? What's the exact story? Who did this happen to? But I just found all these different legends and they were all so wildly different. There's like fire foxes, there's like warriors having battles, there's spirits playing a game with a walrus skull. There was one that I really thought was lovely, which was I think it's Greenland. So they were the souls of babies who had died before they were born. And I don't know, I had all these stories spinning around and I didn't really know like what part to take from any of them. And so I was kind of thinking, well, it's like more even just the stories that give the magic rather than the Northern Lights. The Northern Lights are just like particles, but it's like the people making those stories that gives them the magic. So I wanted the magic to come from stories and from imagination and from memories and like just that sort of nebulous non-reality that exists for everybody. And so when I first started writing it, I think I meant for it to be a short story. And it was about this girl and her friend, like her male best friend, and they just randomly called down the lights, and like he touched them, and he became changed, and like there was this whole thing that was going to happen. And I think I wrote like, I don't know, maybe 10 pages of it, and I was like, this isn't working. It like needs to be something closer to this girl. It needs to be like more important to her. So then I just kind of got this idea of what if it was her mom that this happened to, and it changed their lives forever. And I don't know, I just kind of went from there, like, just what if this happened and what would you do and where would you go and like where would you be where this could happen to you? So it just kind of it bloomed into the story from there.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it when you hear sort of those, like just a nugget or like almost like an earworm, right? Gets in and it's really the seed of a story and a question that you end up having. I actually saw a writer on Twitter, I think earlier today, say something about how she's lamenting not being able to go out in the world because she's realizing how much of her creative process comes from all of those sorts of small observations or interactions. Like a lot of that process and inspiration comes from those moments that have been harder to get at.
Yeah. Just like the tiniest thing, you're out walking and you see like, I don't know, you see like a mitten that somebody lost and like, it just like sets off an idea, and it is hard to get those when you're stuck inside all the time.
Yes, absolutely. Since we're still, one of the questions that just came in is related, and it's from Rebecca. And she said, the setting of this book is absolutely stunning. So how did you channel all the eerie, desolate winter magic into this story? And I know we talked a little bit about the setting when we talked before this. So yeah, I think that talking about that would be great because it's a great winter read, everyone. It's very wintry.
Yeah, if you're looking to like feel warm and cozy during all the storms, it might not be super helpful, but
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah. So like there's two winter settings, and one is Cape Cod, which I grew up on Cape Cod, and it's definitely a very desolate kind of place in the wintertime. And I think it's not a place many people see because nobody really goes there in the winter. So I really liked the idea of kind of showing that part of the Cape. With its sort of raw, gray, windy emptiness. And then I don't know, I just, it's funny. I started drafting this book so long ago, but I remember drafting this, the Arctic part many years ago, and I was writing it, and we got a blizzard right when I was writing some of the scenes from the Arctic. So I went outside and I just stood in the blizzard for a while, and I was like, all right, what does this feel like? It's like silly things that we do in the name of research. But yeah, I think a lot of the drafting I did happened in the winter time, so it was very easy to channel that sort of cold snowiness. It was the winter of 2015. I don't know if you remember that. That was the year we had so much snow, we had nowhere to put it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was like every time you pulled out around a corner, you were like, let's just see what happens. Hope no one's coming.
Yeah.
It's a gamble. Yeah. Live on the edge. That is awesome. So we have another question in here that is great because I think it leads us down a path that I wanted to go anyway. So thank you, Elisa. She loves your opening and loves that the novel has a fairy tale element. So she's curious, was that a choice you made early when drafting or later on in the process? She's excited to read it.
Yeah, that was much later. So that was the first version of this book. Did not have fairy tales. It had memories that were, I don't know what the right word is. They were like magical memories. So like you weren't quite sure if she was imagining what happened or kind of dreaming about it or inventing it. Or so that was all done in a kind of, I don't know, speculative way. And then about halfway through submitting this to editors, I decided to scrap the whole thing and rewrite it. It was originally set in Canada, and I decided to change the setting to Svalbard. And so when I started researching Svalbard, I happened upon all these Norwegian fairy tales. And I just got really inspired by them. And I guess we can talk about Kai Nielsen, so I found these illustrations by it's actually a Danish illustrator, and I have this book, and and he illustrated all these Norwegian fairy tales, and I just got so inspired by the illustrations that my mind started spinning with like, how can I put my characters into these stories or take pieces of these stories? So I'll show you like a couple of my favorite.
Yes, I'm so excited. So when we talked before, Nicole told me about this, so then I geeked out and went and bought a book of the folk tales also that has some of the art in it. So
yeah, aren't they amazing? They're just so inspiring.
I love it.
So I don't know if you can really even see this, but like this is one of the like princesses who got captured by trolls, and like she's underground. And there's just like, oh, there's one other one, the Lindworm, who the Lindworm is the story that I borrowed a lot from, Prince Lindworm. And this is a picture of him. And it's like basically this girl who got forced to marry this like serpent dragon guy called Prince Lindworm. So yeah, I'm so grateful that I found these illustrations, because I don't know that I really would have latched onto the stories as much as I did if I hadn't seen them. And I'm so glad I shared them with you, and you're into it now too.
So into it. I just found this one.
Love that one.
All chilly, looking at the moon. I haven't read any of them yet, but I love it. I'm so excited. So.
I when I first got the book, I took it in the car with my kids we were like driving somewhere, and my husband was driving, and I was like, do you want me to read you a story from my new book? And I read them like the most gruesome, upsetting story.
Yeah, were like, fairy tales will get you. But it's so true. The original fairy tales, like no matter what tradition they are not the Disney fairy tales.
No.
So it is,
awesome.
Yeah, it can be a little shocking in that way.
Yeah.
So some of the things you said, I was like, perfect. You're giving me all of my openings. You mentioned this sort of wondering, like, is she imagining what's happening? Like, is this real or not real? So, and you deal with in the book, I mean, even in terms of the mother talking about mental health and what is real, what's not real, what's, and who sees things in what way. So I was wondering if you wanted to talk about that aspect of things. I can't imagine that it was not on purpose. And it's a really interesting, to me anyway, it's a really interesting piece of your book and all, but just story in general, and almost getting back to what you said right at the beginning about the Northern Lights and about how it's the stories that make them alive, right? And so what is real and what's not real?
Yeah, so I think for me anyway, so to preface this, like I did intentionally write it so that people can kind of take their own interpretation of what's happening. So I'm sort of reluctant to say too much about like what I think is real and what's not real. I don't know if you've ever seen this show. It's called Song Explorer. It's on Netflix. About it. And they had Trent Reznor on, and they were like, what's your song about? And he was like, I never tell people, because you know what, I've had so many songs ruined for me by like them saying what the song's really about. But anyway, I think when I was writing the stories, my intent was that like, yes, the mother has mental illness, and yes, there are stories, and I think other characters kind of blame her mental illness for the magic and the things that happen, and the main character Ellie is the only one who's really like, no, like, yes, my mom has mental illness, and yes, these things happen, but like she wasn't doing that, and that wasn't her fault. And I think if you're like close to anybody with mental illness, like there's a lot of blaming that can happen and can get put on that person, and it's not always the product of their mental illness that stuff's happening. So I kind of wanted to address that as somebody who like deals with an anxiety disorder and has family members, with mental illness. And I'm not sure that I really have like a good answer for that either. Like there's no there's no kind of resolution to that. It's just like, it is what it is, if that, for a total cliche way of putting it.
Well, I love what you just said about, I mean, you use the phrase literally, yes, and, right? Yes, this is true, and this is true. You know, that all, more than one thing can be true. Now I'm going to quote Taylor Swift. No, I think that is a lyric in one of her newer songs.
It sounds about right. Yeah, I've been listening to hers a lot lately.
I mean, who am I kidding? I love Taylor Swift, but I don't know it well enough to fully quote it for this. Yeah. But that's like, I just think that that's so important in what you're talking about in terms of blame, and it's almost like scapegoating a mental illness, right?
Yes.
It's just because this exists doesn't mean these other things aren't true or these other things don't exist.
Yeah.
Also. And so we can leave it there because of letting people, I like what you said and respect that of wanting people to take their own interpretation from this, you know, be able to take what they have, that experience with the book, and being very articulate. And one of the other things that you mentioned that gets me thinking, and you tweeted about this, and now I think I took a screenshot so that I would quote you correctly, but it was about magical realism.
Mm-hmm.
So you tweeted, another gentle reminder that even though some reviews are calling the Wide Starlight magical realism, it's really more contemporary fantasy or fabulism. Magical realism is a genre rooted in Latin American culture, and the Wide Starlight is not that. And so I think that that's a really important distinction. I was wondering if you wanted to talk any more about that distinction, about how you thought of this, about just your experience maybe with people trying to call it magical realism.
Yeah, I think it's something that most people aren't aware of, because I think like magical realism gets used so frequently, and I think that so the term fabulism is one that I have used mostly for my book specifically, because fabulism has to do with fables, right, and stories. So it's when you take stories and legends and stuff like that, and that's where the magic comes from. So fictional characters, that sort of thing. So it's actually a perfect definition for the Wide Starlight, which is magic coming from fairy tales and stories. But I think that fabulism is not a commonly used word. Like, I think if you pulled somebody off the street and said, do you know what fabulism is, they wouldn't know. So I think like, I guess I'm like trying to spread the word, like, here, you can use this word instead. And it doesn't have to be rooted in like magical realism, generally rooted in like colonialism and like Latin America, and like the effects that they had from being colonized, and like the oppression. So I think what I'm doing maybe is similar with Ellie, sort of going through a lot of trauma, but it is a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess I'm just trying to spread the word.
Tell
all your friends, use fabulism.
There you go. No, it's so important. And I think that we do, it's like people finally learn what magical realism is or looks like, and they recognize an element of that. And so that's what they call it, without the full understanding of the roots of magical realism.
Yeah.
So it is important. And I mean, hats off to you for sure for making sure up front, out the gate, people know that there is a distinction to be made here. And while we're kind of on magic, I know Kira wanted us to talk more about magic. And I'm in, like, so if well, you wouldn't be able to really see me if I stood up anyway, but I'm in all black. And I do have to say that that was not intentional, but I laughed at myself when I got dressed, because Thor Ragnarok has been on TV a lot in the last 48 hours. I don't know if anyone else has been watching. And there is a line at the beginning with Loki and Thor, and Loki says something about not being a witch, and Thor asks him, well, then why do you dress like one? And I'm basically just like him. So I was just like, well, that's fine. But when I stalked you, nicely, friendly stalking
In a very nice way, yes.
on the internet. And we learned that we both like tarot. You shared with me also that sometimes you use tarot in your writing process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is so cool, and I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I'm not really like a practicing Wiccan or anything. I just I've ever since I was in high school, my sister and I used to read tarot cards, and we were just really into it. And I kind of put it aside for a while, and then when I started writing again, I was talking to my agent Kathleen, who I think she was here. I don't know if she had to leave, but she hi Kathleen. She and I started talking about it, and I was like, oh, I should get back into like tarot cards again. And she told me, oh, you know, there's all these creative ways you can use them. And I just thought, yeah, that's a really great idea. So I started sometimes I'll just pull a card and just kind of use it to like inspire what I'm doing, but sometimes I will just take a character from my book, like usually a main character or like, you know, somebody important, and just do a reading for them like they're here. And it really helps me to like understand their character, because, you know, I'll pull a card and I'll be like, oh, well, maybe that would be a really interesting thing to add to their personality, or oh wow, they have a dark secret and here's something that it could be about. Or I think like a lot of writers use character profiles, you know, like what's your character's favorite flavor of ice cream, and like what do they think about their father, and you know, that kind of thing. So I think it's just kind of a different way of doing that.
Yeah, it's a little bit different way into like the character interview and that pre-writing
Yeah.
thing, which is so cool. I've never done that for a character myself. I have pulled a card sort of to get me going, just writing, like if I'm stuck on something, like, so almost use it like a writing prompt in a way, maybe for a writing exercise, and that can be helpful. But I'm very curious about this. I really like this idea. And the thing I'm working on has magic in it, and I'm like, why am I not doing tarot spreads for all of my characters?
Yeah. It just
But
gets
I
your brain
haven't.
kind of thinking in another direction, you know?
Yeah, I love it. And do you tend to do a lot of, now I'm going to ask you nerdy writing questions because I can, a lot of pre-writing, like exercises, or do you dive right in? What's sort of your writing process?
Um, well, so I have you heard of the term pantser?
Oh yeah.
So it's a writing term like fly by the seat of your pants. You're pantsing. It means like you just make up the story as you go along and you like worry about it later. So I used to be like that, and I'm trying to reform myself.
Kindred
It's
spirit.
hard. Yeah, like I know I need to outline. I do. It's really like it's the smart thing to do. It is, because then you don't. I if you can get a good outline and write the story, then you don't have to spend like 3 times as long revising it as you did writing it. The Wide Starlight, I definitely just like wrote like, you know, I pantsed it, and then because I had to revise it so many times, I then started outlining my revisions, and it did work a lot better that way. So yeah, but I do think, I mean, there's something so amazing about just
Yeah.
going for it and not knowing where you're going to go, and you come up with so many great ideas. So I think like a hybrid of the two can be really good.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like I often, like, I have to allow myself the freedom. Like when I first begin writing something, I'm writing for the same reason I would read the book, which is to find out what happens.
Yeah.
So I just know everything that happens. I'm not actually all that motivated to write the story anymore.
Yeah.
Now, at some point in the process, I do know what happens, and yeah, I need to outline and everything. But early on, I'm a total pantser. which sounds like we're like gonna pull people's pants down, but that is not it.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
No, well, working in a high school, I have that sense of humor.
Yes.
So it's very mature. So awesome. We have another question that came in. This is from Sharon. A few years ago, a friend of mine had a memorable experience on an artist's fellowship on a scientific research vessel that spent weeks in the icy waters around Svalbard. It was an experience that has fed into several of her creative projects. So Nicole, after writing The Wide Starlight, would you ever want to do something like that, maybe while researching a sequel or companion novel?
It sounds amazing. So after I got the book deal for The Wide Starlight, I went on a research trip just to make sure that I had my details correct. I had basically like done my research by reading and watching YouTube videos of Svalbard, which are actually incredibly helpful. So my friend Liz and I went to Svalbard for a few days, and I did get to ride in a boat through the icy waters, and it was just like the most sort of transcendent experience ever, just to be in this flat icy water with these fjords everywhere and these mountains. And it's an incredible place. It's just, it feels like you're on another planet when you're there. It's just so unreal and stunning. So I can totally see where your friend was so inspired by being there and got all kinds of creative ideas.
Yeah, it's so awesome. It's so cool that you got to go.
It was definitely kind of like a spur of the moment thing. Like I emailed my friend in England and I said, hey, do you want to go to Svalbard with me? And she was awesome. She said, sure. And so my husband watched the kids, and I got on a plane, and it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Kira just chimed in that she's loving the discussion, but wants to go back to fabulism for a second. So do you consider yourself a speculative writer? And how does that identity, if you have it, impact your approach to storytelling?
Yes. I don't know that I've written anything that doesn't have a speculative element. Like the closest thing I can think of is like this story that I wrote about a bird calling competition where people like did weird bird calling, like a spelling bee. And even that was like a little bit outside of the realm of reality. I love magic. I like anything that's just slightly outside of normal. I wrote a thriller like back when I was still figuring out how to write a book that had like sci-fi. It was like light sci-fi in a realistic setting. But yeah, I think I'm very firmly in the genre of speculative and magical stories.
Yeah.
Is that what you write as well?
There's often magic. The short story for the collection I'll be a part of is realistic. And I've done a realistic, like I think one of the novels that I have a draft of is realistic. But everything else I've ever written has had magic in it, which I just like. I know that there's a whole discussion of when you're writing and world building, like with magic, you have to come up with all the rules of the world versus realistic. We know what our world is and what the rules are. Mm-hmm. I guess I don't like the real world rules. They get in the way sometimes. And I mean, then I write myself into corners, and people who read my friends who read my stuff are like, well, what about this? Why can't magic just fix that? And it's like an excellent question. It does in some ways make more work for ourselves, but I just really love it. And I think that for me, story often just feels like magic anyway. Like, what is that feeling when you get lost in a book when you're reading? Mm-hmm. Right? Or like even music or whatever sort of creative thing you do when you get in the writing zone, right? Yeah. And like you're like, oh my gosh, the words are working.
It's like having magical powers when it's going like that.
It is. So yeah, all about the magic for sure.
Yeah. I think that you can use magic to amplify so much as well. I just love taking a concept that's like, stretched about this far and then just stretching it like that much further with magic. I really enjoy using it.
Yeah. Well, and also what's the difference? Where's the line between magic and science? Like so much of what we know to be true scientifically now would have been sorcery back in the day.
Yeah, true.
Right? So it's just, I don't know. I guess I like it. We don't have to, we can keep nerding out about magic. Forever, basically. A couple things, if I put my librarian hat on, that I really appreciate about this book specifically. One of the big things is that there's not a romance in here. And I did want to touch on that because that is rare in the YA world. And I can tell you, and if any industry people are here, agents, publishers, editors, whoever, in the library, students are asking for books without romance. I get it all the time. And I think about myself as a teen, and I definitely loved reading the romance because I was not having any romances, but it was in no way a reflection of my actual life. I was not having any of those romances. So thank you for giving me another book I can recommend, because I mean, it's a fairly short list. I sort of have like a little list of like, oh, you don't want romance, I can give you one of these few books. I hope they aren't all out at this particular moment.
Yeah.
Was that on purpose, or did that just sort of happen in the process? Was it just not really part of Ellie's story because this was really about her mother for her and her own, like, that relationship? Or where did that
Yes, yeah, you're so right about YA almost exclusively having romance, and I think that's because it is such a fascinating topic when you're a teenager, whether you're actually having romance or just thinking about romance. Like your life is kind of like very focused on romance in some way or another. I originally, like, the first version of this book did have romance, and when I did the big rewrite, I started really honing in on Ellie and her mother's relationship to the point where it didn't feel necessary anymore. In fact, it kind of felt like it was distracting that she was like running off with a boy at certain points in the story. And I was like, this is not her focus right now. And like, I don't know, maybe there are boys in her life, but that's just not what this story is about. Or girls, like I don't think I even really went there with her. But I think just as I really, and actually a lot of the side characters dropped out in this most recent version too. Like I just really dug really tightly into their relationship, Ellie and her mom. And then she has like one best friend, one cousin, and I don't know. I really just wanted it to be kind of clean and tight on those relationships. So I will write romance probably the next time I write a YA, but this time, yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, listen, teen girls don't always have time for that. Boys can just be or girls. Romance can just be something that they don't have time for.
Yeah.
And they have other, I mean, teenagers deal with so many things. They have so many things going on. And like I think you're so right that romance can be such a big part of that high school experience, like either the longing or the having, and then the not having, all of it. And at the same time, I mean, I see so many kids and it's like, they're busy.
Yeah.
Don't know. Sometimes they're just like, I don't have time for that.
It's hard work.
Yep, absolutely. So I do want to just say, if anyone else has any questions, we have about 5 more minutes that we're chatting before we do our giveaway and things like that. So if you've got other questions, please pop them in either the chat or the Q&A box. And I'm happy to read them. So This has been so fun, and I'm like, let's talk about all writing things all the time. We've already decided that we will, when, in non-pandemic times, maybe get some hot beverages and discuss these things without an audience. We won't bore everyone with all our nerdy things that we have in common.
I would love to hear a little bit more about your anthology that you're doing, if you're willing to share.
Sure, I can tell you something briefly, and then we did get another question. So it's called Absolutely Normal, and it's a YA anthology that's all own voices about for mental health. So they're all mental health stories. There are some really amazing people contributing: A.S. King, Nikki Grimes, Eric Gansworth. I am blanking on other people, but I'm floored to have my name next to theirs. So the story I'm writing has romance and no magic. The opposite of yours. And it's a promposal, and like it's the whole story isn't, but promposals are a big part of it, which, thank God, promposals were not a thing.
Oh my goodness, yes. So much pressure.
Talk about the pressure. Oh my gosh. I don't have enough. So I'm really honored to be a part of it. It was just officially announced, so it's very exciting, and I think it's spring 2023, so it's a couple years away. I have been working on revising it and on my story. And so actually, yeah, that's one more question I have for you is, do you prefer drafting or revision?
Oh, revision. By far. Oh, I really don't like drafting. It's like so rare that I really feel like in the zone. Most of the time it's like suffering to get the words out. And then once they're out, I'm like, okay, I got this. And I like get in up to my elbows and I just like fix it all up. And yeah.
So true. I feel exactly the same way. I'm just like, who am I to make something up from nothing? Like, what's going on? But then once it's there, I'm like, great, I have material to work with now that it actually exists in front of me. So awesome. Check another thing off that we have in common.
Yeah.
So Matt is asking, how does your process differ writing middle grade versus YA? Do the differences come down more to content or language, or do you find one or the other more freeing or exciting?
That's a really good question. I don't know. So I had written YA almost exclusively. And then when I had the Wide Starlight was out on submission to editors, I had a really rough time of it. Like I was revising and like getting a lot of rejections. And it was really, for anybody who's read the book, it's a really heavy book in places. Like Ellie's going through a lot of really heavy, painful stuff. So I definitely had internalized a lot of that too. It's impossible for me to write in somebody's head without absorbing how they're feeling. So when I got this idea about the Dream Shop for my middle grade book, I actually thought it might be YA, and my agent said, this sounds like a middle grade book. So I wrote it as middle grade, and it was a huge release from this book. So it was this book, The Wide Starlight, is in first person, very in her head. And then I wrote The Nightmare Thief in third person, and it has more of like a narrator voice to it. So there's a bit of like a removed, I felt removed more from the characters. I felt like I could kind of play with quirky language more, and humor definitely is not very present in The Wide Starlight. And I have this parrot in The Nightmare Thief who's like cracking jokes in French and insulting people, and there's fart jokes and yeah, just like silly stuff. So I think that writing middle grade was really kind of healing for me in a way, and like very freeing. So I enjoyed that a lot. And I've been working on the sequel to it, and it's a little bit more lighthearted than the first book. So it's been really good.
The sequel to The Nightmare Thief.
Yes.
Awesome. So that's the next thing we can look for.
Another
After
middle
these.
grade.
Fabulous. And that leads, I was going to say, what's sort of coming down the pike.
Yeah, so that's the Dream Spies is the name of the sequel to The Nightmare Thief. That's coming out. I don't know the date yet, but sometime next year. And then I'm writing another YA that I really say too much about at this point, but it's been really fun to like dive into that too. It's very dark and kind of sinister, so I'm having fun with that. It's been really good.
All right. Awesome. So we'll get more YA and more middle grade. Excellent to know.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, Kira's back. Hi, Kira.
I am. I'm so sorry to break this up because this has been fabulous, and I've loved every second of it, and I'm especially enjoying just talking about revision and talking about magic, and I'm so grateful, Anna, that you got all righty nerdy, because I think that makes these the best conversations. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm here to do our giveaway. So I believe that we have 3 items. So I'm pulling 3 names, right?
Yep.
Right.
So I have a silver unicorn mug. It's
So good.
really good size. You could fit a lot of coffee or tea into it. I have a hat from the silver unicorn, which is very fitting for our weather right now. It says silver unicorn on it, really cute. And then I have a signed copy of my book.
Excellent prizes, all.
Perfect prizes. So I made like a wheel of fortune, of which I'm going to share my screen. Oh yes, here we go. So I'm gonna share my screen, and I made it. Can everybody see that? Can you see the wheel of fortune?
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. So this has the names of everybody who registered for the event. So I don't know whether or not we want to change the rules so you have to be here. So you can choose that, but this is based on everybody who registered.
Great.
All right, so I'm gonna press this button and hopefully it works.
We should have music.
Oh, Matt Izzy won something! Yay! Okay, what did Matt win?
A mug.
Yes.
Matt,
Congratulations,
I would
Matt.
give you at work, but I can't because I can't see you at work. So, but thank you for coming, and I'll mail it to you.
Okay, brilliant. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm gonna hide that choice so Matt can't win 2. All right, we're gonna do it again. Are we ready?
Yeah.
So cute. I've never seen you like this before.
Exciting stuff. The only song that comes into my mind to hum is Jeopardy.
Judy Bell. Is Judy Bell here? Let's see if Judy Bell is here. I believe that Judy is here, right? So we're going to write down that name. And Judy will win the hat. Super warm. Yay. Perfect. And now I'm going to hide Judy.
I guess if they win, can they email you their address and you can pass it on to me, or they can email me their address?
Yes. So I'm writing down Judy just in case she's not here. Yes, and I will email for address. Bam. So if you're here, Judy, don't put your address in the chat. I will email you. Okay, and then I'm hiding you, Judy, for our last one to win the signed copy of the Wide Starlight. Ready? Go. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
It's really something.
Who's it gonna be? Eileen Hession. Yay! Congratulations, everybody. Eileen, I'm writing your name down. Yes. Yay! All right. That was so much fun, and this is a great thing. And thank you to all Acton Boxborough teachers who have been using these kind of apps for various like just online things. It's been so much fun. So that's where I got this inspiration from.
Now everyone knows what online learning's like.
Yeah, basically. Yes, it's so true. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share, and now everybody should be back, right? Everybody sees the peoples. Okay, very good. So yay, congratulations to our 3 awesome winners. And just congratulations again. for this really special, this has just been so special. So we have 6 minutes left, and I'm curious to know if there's any last thoughts. There's part of me that wants to like draw another tarot card to see what
Oh my
what that would
gosh.
do. I don't know if that would be like
could.
if that would be against the magic rules.
I don't know. Lynn, I didn't see this. She came in right before you came on and asking, do you prefer original writing or sequel writing? Which I think is a really good question.
That is a great
Hi,
question.
Mom. That's my mom.
Hi, Mom.
I think I prefer original writing, actually. But then sequels are cool because you already know the characters, and it takes a lot less work to figure out what they would do and like how they would act, and just so yeah, I think sequels are a lot faster and easier for sure. But I do like fresh. I don't know that I could ever write like a huge long series. I think I like to keep switching it up.
Yeah. And I think you answered this, that you're not exactly sure when, but Jane said the kids wanted to ask when the next Nightmare Thief would come out because they just loved it. You said sometime next year, right?
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I think in next winter, but I don't have a publication date yet. But I promise I'll let you know as soon as I do know.
Stay tuned. All right, good.
Phenomenal.
I felt that. I was like, oh, I missed some questions, but we got them. So that's great. I can pull another card. Do you have cards near you? Do you want to pull a card?
I should have brought some.
All right, I'll do
In
it.
another room.
Do you want to ask the question?
Maybe we could just like pull one as like an intention for the week or something.
Sure. Sound good, Kira?
Please be good. Please be good. Please be good. Please be good.
Yeah.
I believe the magic. Like I'm so concerned that it's gonna be like the death
I mean, now
card.
you're making me nervous.
I'm so nervous.
Bad ones are not necessarily bad. They're really, there's always like a good side to everyone.
See, Nicole's gonna help us because
Okay,
she
good.
knows more about it than I do too.
Okay, so pull the card. I'm just gonna be right here. I'm gonna be right here.
So, like a message or intention or something for the week.
Yeah.
No. Taking that one away.
It was a bad card. Oh no. Okay. See.
There's not, and it's not. I just have to tell you, it was the Tower. You can't even spin that one.
Oh no. See.
Yeah, my daughter just yelled no from downstairs.
Oh no.
So it's fine. It's fine. We weren't very specific.
That just means like a big change.
A big change
coming.
Big change. We could use a big change, couldn't we?
I mean,
Absolutely.
Lord knows. Yeah. And just to be clear, like tomorrow's Ash Wednesday, like it's the start of Lent. So it is a big change from this energy to that energy.
You know what? It worked. Well, here's the Tower. Looks ominous though.
Yes,
Yeah.
very ominous.
Yeah. So
It's a big shakeup.
what? Big shakeup. Big shakeup.
Yeah.
Do you know off the top of your head what the 10 of Pentacles is? That was the second one I chose.
Yes, that's like a really good one about like things coming to fruition and like prosperity, and
we're gonna go with together a good change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
We're gonna go with that.
Too, it gives you context. So those are very different. That's an interesting thing to think about.
Paul, a big change like landing on the bestseller list.
Heyo, there we go.
And
see, that's the manifestation right there. That's what we want.
Love it.
Yes. Love
With
it.
those two together, it does not mean a bad thing. I
Exactly.
think having the other one with it, it's a good change.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to manifest that. See, I brought that. I'm sorry. I was like, I'm not going to look. And then the universe was like, it's the car.
It's fine.
That is so funny. This has been amazing. I'm just so grateful to the both of you. Anna, you're an amazing host. I just thought that this was so great. You do a great
Anytime.
job. Yeah, no, you coming back. So because this was great. I didn't do anything here. Nicole, you are amazing. Your books are beautiful. They're fabulous. The Nightmare Thief is awesome. It's on my bookshelf in my boys' room, and they're reading it and they're enjoying it. I'm looking forward to reading The Wide Starlight. I think that this is such a special year for you, and it's such a big honor for us that we could be part of it. So just again, thank you so much for choosing us to host you, for bringing these beautiful things into the world. I just like, you're an amazing storyteller, and this has been amazing.
Thank you, and thanks so much for hosting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anna, you're coming back. The both of y'all are coming back. Friends, thank you so much for sticking with us this evening, this cold evening. So yay for hats, yay for coffee, yay for cozy books in cold places with great narratives. If you are looking for your copy of The Wide Starlight, which we're gonna hold up one more time. Go to the bookstore, the Silver Unicorn Bookstore, if you're here in town, or to silverunicornbooks.com. If you would like a signed copy, make sure that you write a little something in the comment section, so that way we can make sure that we get a signed copy out to you. In the meantime, by the way, if you want to find this at a local bookstore near you, do make sure that you find a local independent bookstore to support near you. And with that, we just hope that you stay healthy and you stay safe out there. And we will see you again. Next week, we have Jen Petra Roy and Allison, and her last name, I'm blanking on it because it's late and I'm tired. We have two awesome YA authors who will be here to talk about their new books. Jen's new book, Life in the Balance, just came out, I believe, last week. So come back here for that. We have events all through March. We are booking events through April, May, and through June. So come see us at silverunicornbooks.com. And with that, I send y'all off into the world. Have a great night. Stay safe, stay warm out there, and we'll see you again soon. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Nicole.
Thank you so much.